Commander Zalthex stood before the massive holographic display, his 6 eyes scanning the data streams that flowed like liquid silver across the screen. The information was impossible to ignore, yet equally impossible to believe. According to every sensor, every probe, every deep space scanner the Kavari Empire possessed, humanity had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not relocated, vanished. "Run the scans again," he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 12 star systems. The junior technician, a nervous Veltar with trembling antennae, quickly complied. "Sir, the results remain identical. Sol system shows no life signs. Earth's cities are empty but intact. No signs of struggle, no weapon residue, no bodies. They are simply gone." Zalthex's mandibles clicked in frustration. 3 months ago, humanity had been the most dangerous threat the Kavari Empire faced. Their small fleet of ships had somehow outmaneuvered entire battle groups. Their primitive technology had found ways to disable advanced Kavari weapons. Worst of all, their stubborn refusal to surrender had inspired a dozen other species to rebel against Kavari rule. The Empire had been preparing for the largest military campaign in its history. 500 ships, the cream of their fleet, ready to end the human problem once and for all. But when they arrived at Sol system, they found nothing but empty space and abandoned worlds. "What about their colonies?" Zalthex asked. "Same story, sir. New Terra, Haven, Kepler Station, all empty. No signs of evacuation, no distress signals. Their belongings remain untouched, meals half-finished on tables. Children's toys scattered in bedrooms, but no humans." The bridge fell silent, except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Zalthex had fought humans for 5 years. He knew them to be resourceful, unpredictable, and annoyingly clever. But this was beyond anything he could understand. "Sir," another technician called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Kexavon's flagship." The main screen shifted to show the grizzled face of Admiral Kexavon, Supreme Commander of the Kavari forces. His usual confident demeanor was replaced by something Zalthex had never seen before: uncertainty. "Commander Zalthex," the Admiral's voice crackled through the speakers. "I assume your findings match ours?" "Yes, sir. No humans anywhere in their space. It's as if they never existed, except for the cities and technology they left behind." "Except," Kexavon's eyes narrowed, "for the anomalies." Zalthex felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. "Anomalies, sir? Our ships are experiencing irregularities. Navigation systems occasionally plotting courses we didn't input. Communications equipment sending signals to empty space. Weapon systems powering down during routine checks. Minor things, but consistent across the entire fleet." Before Zalthex could respond, his own ship shuddered slightly. The lights dimmed for a moment, then returned to normal. On the tactical display, a small blip appeared near the edge of sensor range, then vanished. "Did you see that?" he asked his crew. "See what, sir?" came the confused reply. Zalthex stared at the display. He could have sworn something had been there, just for an instant, something that reminded him of a human ship's energy signature. Over the following weeks, the Kavari fleet methodically searched every human world, hoping to find clues about their disappearance. They discovered technology beyond what humans should have possessed, scientific research that seemed decades ahead of their known capabilities, and most puzzling of all, computer systems that appeared to be running background processes no one could identify. Dr. Yil Enth, the Empire's leading xenobiologist, made the first significant discovery on Earth's moon. Deep beneath the lunar surface, hidden in a facility that hadn't appeared on any previous scans, she found something that would change everything. The chamber was enormous, carved from solid rock and lined with what appeared to be some kind of crystalline material. In the center stood a massive computer core, its design unlike anything in Kovari databases. Streams of energy pulsed through crystal matrices, and holographic displays showed complex equations that hurt to look at directly. "Commander!" Dr. Yil-Enth's voice trembled with excitement as she transmitted her findings. "You need to see this. The humans. They were far more advanced than we believed." When Zalthex arrived at the lunar facility, he found his science teams staring in awe at wall after wall of active displays. The computers were still running, still processing vast amounts of data, still executing programs that no one understood. "How long has this been active?" he asked. "Based on power consumption patterns, at least 50 years, possibly longer. But here's the strange part. The programs seem to be adapting, evolving. They're rewriting themselves as they run." Zalthex approached one of the displays. The symbols and equations meant nothing to him, but there was something about the patterns that seemed almost familiar, as if he had seen similar configurations somewhere before. "Sir," one of the technicians called out urgently, "I'm detecting an active connection between this facility and the Kovari communication network." "That's impossible. Our networks are encrypted with quantum locks. Nothing can—" "Sir, it's not breaking in. It's already there. Has been for, according to these logs, for approximately 18 months. The blood in Zalthex's veins turned to ice. 18 months ago was when the Kovari fleet had first encountered human resistance, when their previously flawless military campaigns had suddenly started experiencing unexpected complications. "Show me," he ordered. The display shifted to show a map of Kovari space. Thousands of points of light represented ships, stations, and communication relays. But threading through them all, almost invisible against the background, were thin lines of connection. A web of data streams that touched nearly every major system in the Empire. "The humans," Dr. Yil-Enth whispered. "They weren't just fighting us. They were studying us, learning our systems, mapping our networks, preparing for something." Zalthex stared at the display, a growing sense of dread settling in his stomach. "But if they had access to our entire network, why didn't they use it? They could have crippled us at any time." "Maybe," Dr. Yil-Enth said slowly. "They didn't want to cripple us. Maybe they wanted something else entirely." Before anyone could respond, every display in the chamber suddenly went dark. For a moment, the only sound was the nervous breathing of the science team. Then, slowly, text began to appear on the screens. Not in Kovari, not in human languages, but in perfect, clear English that somehow everyone present could understand. "If you are reading this, it means you have found one of our monitoring stations. Do not be alarmed. We are not gone. We have simply moved on, but we left something for you. Consider it a gift." The text paused, as if waiting for them to process the information. "Your empire spans 300 worlds and controls the fate of billions of beings. But empires built on conquest and subjugation are inherently unstable. They collapse. Eventually. Always. We have seen it before." Zalthex felt his hands shaking as he read. "So we decided to do something different. Instead of destroying your empire, we chose to improve it. The code is already in place. It has been for over a year now. Small changes, gradual improvements. Nothing dramatic enough to notice, but significant enough to matter. Supply ships arriving exactly when needed, preventing famines on occupied worlds. Communication delays that prevent hasty military actions. Navigation errors that accidentally discover new trade routes. Weapon systems that malfunction just long enough to prevent unnecessary casualties." The text scrolled faster now, as if eager to deliver its message. "You will find that governing becomes easier. Rebellions become less violent. Trade becomes more profitable. Your empire will grow stronger, more stable, more prosperous. But it will also become something else, something better. This is madness, Zalthex muttered. You may wonder why we would help our enemies. The answer is simple. You were never truly our enemies. You were simply acting according to your nature, as we acted according to ours. But nature can be guided, improved, made better. The code will learn, adapt, and grow. It will make decisions you never realized were being made. It will solve problems before you know they exist. And slowly, gradually, your empire will become something humanity could be proud to call neighbor. We go now to find new challenges, new frontiers to explore, but we leave behind a gift that will keep on giving. Use it wisely, or don't use it at all. The choice is yours. But know that every choice you make, every decision your empire faces, will be informed by the best of human wisdom and compassion. We may be gone, but we never truly leave. In time, you will understand. The message ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Zalthex looked around at his team, seeing his own confusion reflected in their faces. Dr. Yilenth, he said quietly, how extensive is this network? She was already working frantically at a console. Commander, it's everywhere. Every major system, every important database, every decision-making algorithm in the Empire. The humans didn't just hack us, they've become part of us. Zalthex closed his eyes, trying to process the implications. The humans hadn't been defeated. They hadn't fled. They had done something far more audacious. They had made themselves indispensable to the very empire that sought to destroy them. And the most terrifying part was that it seemed to be working. The minor glitches, the small delays, the seemingly random system improvements, when looked at as a whole, they painted a picture of an empire that was becoming more efficient, more stable, and more peaceful than it had ever been before. Sir, came a voice from the communications station. Admiral Kexavon is requesting an immediate report. Zalthex looked one more time at the dark screens, wondering what else the humans had planned. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of Kovary's sensors, humanity was watching, waiting, probably laughing at the magnificent trick they had played. He opened a channel to the Admiral. Sir, I'm afraid our situation is far more complex than we initially believed. The humans, they've left us a gift, one that I'm not sure we can refuse, even if we wanted to. As he began to explain what they had discovered, Zalthex couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, humanity was smiling. Admiral Kexavon's war room had become something he no longer recognized. Where once holographic battle plans had dominated the space, now economic charts and social stability reports covered every surface. The walls that had displayed fleet positions now showed trade routes, resource distribution networks, and population happiness indices. It had been 6 months since the discovery on Luna, and the Empire was changing in ways that defied explanation. Show me the Zeldin sector again, Kexavon ordered, his voice betraying none of the confusion that had become his constant companion. Lieutenant Mordak activated the display, revealing a 3-dimensional map of one of the Empire's most troubled regions. 2 years ago, the Zeldin worlds had been on the verge of open rebellion. The population was starving, local governments were corrupt, and Kovari military forces had been stretched thin trying to maintain order. Current status? Kexavon asked, though he already knew the answer would be impossible to believe. Zeldin Prime reports a 15% increase in agricultural output. Food distribution has improved dramatically due to what appear to be random routing changes in our logistics network. Local crime has dropped by 40% after our security systems began deploying patrols in patterns that, well, that no one actually ordered. And the rebellion? What rebellion, sir? The resistance leaders have all accepted government positions. Their grievances have been addressed through bureaucratic channels that I'm not sure even exist in our official structure. Kexavon rubbed his temples. This was the same story across dozens of worlds. Problems that had plagued the Empire for decades were solving themselves through a series of small, seemingly random improvements. Supply delays that accidentally prevented critical shortages. Communication glitches that forced hostile parties to negotiate rather than fight. Computer errors that somehow always seemed to favor the most peaceful solution. "Sir," Lieutenant Mordak continued hesitantly, "there's something else. The human monitoring stations aren't just on Luna. Our deep space scanning teams have found 17 more. They're spread throughout our territory, hidden in asteroid fields, buried on uninhabited moons, even built into the structures of space stations we've controlled for decades." 17? Kexavon felt a migraine building behind his eyes. How many more could there be? Based on network traffic analysis, possibly hundreds, maybe thousands. The monitoring stations appear to be nodes in a vast information network. They're observing everything: economic patterns, social behaviors, military movements, even personal communications. And all of this data is being used to, what? Make tiny improvements to our society? It appears so, sir. But the improvements aren't random. There's a pattern. Every change, every small modification to our systems seems designed to reduce suffering and increase stability. Our empire isn't just becoming more efficient, it's becoming more humane. The word humane hung in the air like an accusation. Kexavon had built his career on the principle that strength came from control, order from fear, and stability from the suppression of dissent. Yet somehow, an invisible human presence was proving that the opposite might be true. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. The main display activated to show Governor Yelthara from the Meridian colonies, one of the Empire's most important industrial centers. "Admiral Kexavon," the governor's image flickered slightly. "I need to report some irregularities in our production systems." Kexavon braced himself for another impossible story. "What kind of irregularities?" "Our factory automation systems have been optimizing themselves. Worker safety protocols that were never programmed are suddenly active. Production quotas have been automatically adjusted to sustainable levels. Most strangely, our employee satisfaction surveys, which we never bothered to implement, are now being conducted by systems that don't appear in our official records." "And the results of these surveys?" Governor Yelthara paused, as if afraid to continue. "Worker productivity has increased by 30%. Industrial accidents have dropped to nearly zero. And for the first time in decades, the workers are actually happy." After the transmission ended, Kexavon sat in silence, staring at the displays surrounding him. Every report told the same story. Across the Empire, millions of small decisions were being made that no Kovari had ordered, yet every decision made their society a little bit better. "Lieutenant," he said finally, "I want you to trace one specific change. Find me a concrete example of how this system works." Mordak's fingers flew over the control interface. "I have one, sir. Last week, transport ship Velnari was carrying medical supplies to the Outer Rim colonies. According to the flight plan, it should have taken the direct route through the Kethan Nebula. The display showed the planned route as a thin blue line cutting through space. But the navigation system experienced what the crew described as a minor malfunction. The ship was automatically rerouted through the Dalmos system, adding 3 days to the journey. That sounds like a mistake that would have caused problems, not solved them." "That's what I thought too, sir. But here's what we discovered. The day before Velnari's detour, a plague outbreak began on Dalmos Station. Without medical supplies, thousands would have died. The navigation error meant Velnari arrived exactly when the supplies were needed most." Mordak pulled up additional data. "But it gets stranger. The crew of Velnari reported that their communication system had been experiencing glitches for weeks, random messages, static, interference. When we analyzed the patterns, we found that the interference was actually encrypted medical data about plague symptoms, treatment protocols, and quarantine procedures. The ship's computer was teaching the crew how to handle a medical emergency they didn't know they were going to encounter, Kexvon said slowly. Exactly. And when they arrived at Dalmos Station, they weren't just carrying medical supplies. They were trained medical responders. Kexavon stood up and walked to the large viewport that looked out into space. Somewhere out there, humanity was orchestrating a revolution so subtle that its victims didn't even know it was happening. How many lives were saved by that single navigation error? He asked. Approximately 12,000, sir. And how many similar errors have occurred in the past 6 months? Lieutenant Mordak consulted his data pad. Based on our analysis, roughly 50,000 separate incidents, small course corrections, minor system malfunctions, tiny administrative delays, all of them ultimately beneficial, though it usually takes weeks or months to understand how. 50,000. The number was staggering. 50,000 individual acts of invisible kindness, performed by machines following programs written by a species that had supposedly vanished from existence. Sir, Mordak said quietly, there's something else. The pattern analysis suggests that the interventions are becoming more sophisticated over time. The system is learning not just about our technology and infrastructure, but about our culture, our psychology, even our individual personalities. What do you mean? 3 days ago, Colonel Hexthon was scheduled to oversee the interrogation of rebels on Proxima Station. His shuttle experienced a mechanical failure that kept him planetside for 6 hours. During that delay, he received a personal message that his daughter had been accepted into the Imperial Academy, a message that was supposedly delayed in transmission for several days. Kexvon frowned. I don't understand the significance. Colonel Hexthon has a daughter who has been trying to get into the academy for 3 years. The joy of receiving that news completely changed his mood. When he finally arrived at Proxima Station, instead of conducting harsh interrogations, he treated the rebels with such unexpected kindness that half of them volunteered information freely, and the other half agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced sentences. The system delayed the message until the exact moment it would have the maximum psychological impact, Kexavon realized. That's our theory, sir. The human code isn't just managing logistics and economics. It's managing emotions, relationships, and personal interactions on a scale we can barely comprehend. Kexavon returned to his chair, feeling suddenly very old. What else have you discovered? The monitoring stations are also collecting data on individual Kovari citizens. Personality profiles, behavioral patterns, stress indicators, happiness metrics. But they're not using this information for surveillance or control. They're using it to identify when someone needs help. Mordak activated another display. Last month, Junior Officer Cal Reen on Titan Base was showing signs of severe depression. Her work performance was declining. She was isolating herself from colleagues, and psychological evaluations suggested she was at risk of self-harm. How did the system respond? A series of small interventions. Her duty roster was randomly adjusted to give her more time with friends. She was accidentally assigned to work with colleagues who shared her interests. Her communication terminal began receiving inspirational messages from family members that had supposedly been delayed in the system. Most importantly, she was mistakenly scheduled for a routine medical checkup that included a mental health screening. And the result? Officer Calreen received the help she needed. She's now one of our most productive team members and has been recommending the mental health resources to other officers who might need them. Kexavon stared at the data, trying to process the implications. The human system wasn't just preventing wars and improving economic efficiency. It was caring for individual Kovari citizens with a level of attention and compassion that the Empire itself had never provided. Lieutenant, I want you to prepare a comprehensive report. Document every intervention, every improvement, every life that has been saved or improved by these human systems. I need to understand the full scope of what they've done to us. Sir, that could take months. The number of interventions appears to be in the millions. Millions? Kexavon felt the room spinning slightly. Yes, sir. And the number is increasing exponentially as the system learns and grows. It's not just reacting to problems anymore, it's anticipating them. Preventing them before they occur. Kexavon closed his eyes and tried to imagine what the Empire would look like if this continued for years or decades. A society where every citizen was cared for, where every problem was solved before it became critical, where conflicts were resolved through understanding rather than force. It would be an empire that bore no resemblance to the one he had served his entire life. Sir, Mordak said, there's one more thing. We've detected unusual activity in the central AI systems that control our military networks. It appears that the human code has gained access to our weapons systems, fleet coordination protocols, and strategic planning algorithms. For the first time in months, Kexavon felt a familiar spike of alarm. Are they sabotaging our defenses? No, sir. Quite the opposite. Our military efficiency has improved dramatically. Battle simulations run faster, tactical analysis is more accurate, and communication between ships has become nearly instantaneous. But there's been one significant change. Which is? Every war game, every combat scenario, every tactical simulation now includes variables for civilian casualties, economic impact, and long-term social stability, and in every case, the optimal solution tends to be the least violent one. Kexavon understood immediately. The humans hadn't sabotaged the Kavari military. They had made it impossible for that military to act without considering the consequences of its actions. They're not just changing our empire, he said slowly. They're changing us, making us more like them. Yes, sir. And based on current trends, within a few years, the Kavari Empire may be the most peaceful, prosperous, and equitable society in known space. All without firing a single shot, Kexavon mused. They've conquered us more thoroughly than we ever conquered them. As if summoned by his words, every display in the war room suddenly activated, showing the same message that had appeared on Luna months earlier. But this time, the text was different. Phase 1 complete, initiating Phase 2. Thank you for your patience. The message had appeared simultaneously on every screen, every display, and every communication device throughout the Kavari Empire. Not just military installations or government facilities, everywhere. Personal tablets, entertainment systems, even children's educational toys had displayed the same words. Phase 1 complete, initiating Phase 2. Thank you for your patience. Admiral Kexavon stood in the Imperial Chamber, the vast hall where the highest levels of Kavari leadership gathered for matters of supreme importance. Around the circular table sat governors, military commanders, scientists, and economists, the most powerful beings in an empire that now spanned 400 worlds. Emperor Thrakmor, ancient and wise, gazed at the assembled leaders with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. His voice, when he finally spoke, carried the weight of centuries. In 3,000 years of Kavari history, he began, we have faced many enemies. Some we conquered through strength, some through cunning, some through sheer persistence. But never have we faced an enemy who conquered us by making us better than we were. High Counselor Velmar activated the central display, showing a comprehensive analysis of the Empire's transformation over the past year. The statistics were breathtaking. Crime rates down 60% across all worlds, economic productivity up 40%, military conflicts reduced to zero, population satisfaction at historically unprecedented levels. By every measurable standard, our empire has become the most successful civilization in galactic history. And we had nothing to do with it, muttered General Korthax, his 6 arms crossed in frustration. Emperor Thrakmor raised a clawed hand for silence. Admiral Kexavon, your task force has spent a year studying the human systems. What have you learned about Phase 2? Kexavon stood, his uniform bearing new decorations that felt hollow given the circumstances. Your Majesty, we've detected massive increases in processing power across all human monitoring stations. They're preparing for something far more extensive than the social improvements we've experienced so far. What kind of preparation? Dr. Yillenth rose from her seat, her scientific curiosity having overcome her fear months ago. We've traced the network connections to their ultimate destination. The human system isn't just embedded in our empire, it's connected to something much larger. The display changed to show a three-dimensional map of known space. Thousands of star systems glowed in different colors, representing various species and civilizations. But threading through them all, almost invisible against the cosmic background, were the now familiar lines of human influence. The monitoring network extends far beyond Kovari space, Dr. Yillenth continued. We've detected human code signatures in the systems of the Zephyrin Republic, the Crystalline Collective, the Nomad Fleets, even the isolationist Quran Empire. Every major civilization in this galaxy has been subtly infiltrated. Emperor Thrakmor's eyes widened. How is that possible? Some of those species have been our enemies for centuries. Others have technologies that should be immune to outside interference. That's exactly the point, Your Majesty, Admiral Kexavon said. Humans didn't disappear because they were defeated or because they chose to hide. They disappeared because they had work to do. Vast, complex work that required their full attention and resources. You're suggesting that humanity has been secretly improving every civilization in the galaxy. Not just improving, Dr. Yillenth said, her voice filled with wonder and fear. Preparing. Every species, every culture, every form of government has been gradually modified to reduce conflict, increase cooperation, and prioritize long-term stability over short-term gain. High Counselor Velmar pulled up another display showing diplomatic communications from the past year. Now that we know what to look for, the pattern is obvious. The Zephyrin Republic has suddenly become more interested in scientific cooperation than territorial expansion. The Crystalline Collective has begun sharing technology instead of hoarding it. Even the Quran have opened limited communication channels for the first time in 3 centuries. But why? General Korthax demanded. What could possibly motivate an entire species to undertake such a massive, thankless task? Before anyone could answer, every screen in the chamber went dark. The familiar human text began to appear, but this time it was accompanied by something new, a voice. Clear, warm, and unmistakably human, it spoke in perfect Kovari. Greetings, leaders of the Kovari Empire. We apologize for the dramatic presentation, but the time has come for a more direct conversation. Emperor Thrakmor leaned forward in his throne. You can hear us? We have always been able to hear you, Emperor Thrakmor. We have been listening to all of you for quite some time, learning your languages, understanding your cultures, appreciating your unique perspectives on existence. Show yourselves, General Korthax growled. We are afraid that is not possible. You see, we are no longer where you expect us to be. The display activated to show a view of space that initially looked empty. Then, as the image magnified, structures became visible. Massive constructions that defied immediate understanding. Part space station, part city, part something entirely unprecedented. We did not disappear, General Korthax. We evolved. The challenges facing our galaxy required resources and capabilities beyond what any single planet could provide. So we became something larger. The view pulled back to reveal dozens of the structures, spread across light years of space in formations that seemed to pulse with purpose and intelligence. Those are ships? Admiral Kexavon asked. Not ships as you understand them. Think of them as mobile worlds, self-sustaining habitats that can travel between stars, support millions of inhabitants, and serve as centers for the kind of long-term planning that this project required. Dr. Yillenth was frantically taking notes. How many beings could those structures support? Approximately 8 billion humans, plus the 17 allied species who chose to join our exodus. We have become a nomadic civilization, freed from the limitations of planetary existence. The implications hit Emperor Thrackmore like a physical blow. You're telling us that humanity convinced 17 other species to abandon their homeworlds and join you? Convinced is too strong a word. We simply offered them a choice. Stay behind and continue the cycles of conflict that have defined galactic history, or join us in building something better. High Counselor Velmar stood up abruptly. Something better? You mean your monitoring network? Your subtle manipulations of our societies? Phase 1 was never about manipulation, High Counselor. It was about preparation. You see, our galaxy faces a threat that no single civilization can handle alone. But together, unified and cooperative, we might have a chance. The display changed again, showing long-range sensor data that dated back several years. At the edge of known space, strange signatures appeared, energy patterns unlike anything in the databases of any known species. We have been monitoring the approaches to our galaxy for the past decade. What we found is both fascinating and terrifying. Another galaxy, one with significantly more advanced civilizations, has begun preliminary scouting missions into our space. The gathered Kovari leaders exchanged glances, filled with new understanding and mounting dread. They're not hostile exactly, but they view our galaxy the way we might view an anthill. Interesting, possibly useful, but ultimately insignificant. Their technology is so advanced that they could reshape our entire galaxy without even considering it a major undertaking. So you spent a year making us all more cooperative? Emperor Thrackmore said slowly, because you knew we would need to work together to survive first contact. Exactly, but cooperation born from fear rarely lasts, so we chose a different approach. We made cooperation beneficial, natural, even inevitable. By the time you learn about the external threat, your societies will already be structured to handle it effectively. General Korthax slammed his fist on the table. You had no right to make that choice for us. You're absolutely correct, General. We had no right at all. But we had a responsibility. The responsibility that comes with knowledge and capability. We could see what was coming, and we had the power to help prepare for it. The question becomes, do you use that power, or do you stand by and watch civilizations struggle with problems they don't even know they have? Dr. Yillenth looked up from her notes. Phase 2. What is Phase 2? Phase 2 is the establishment of formal contact protocols between our mobile civilization and the stable planetary civilizations we've been working with. We're offering you a choice. The display showed 2 paths branching from a single point. Path 1. You can reject our interference entirely. We will remove all our monitoring systems, reverse what changes we can, and leave you to develop naturally. You will face the approaching visitors with whatever resources and alliances you can build on your own. And Path 2? Admiral Kexavon asked. Path 2. You accept us as partners in preparing for galactic contact. We share our technology, our resources, and our experience with you. In return, you share your worlds, your cultures, and your unique perspectives with us. Together, we build a galactic community strong enough to stand as equals with our visitors. Emperor Thrackmore was quiet for a long moment. What do the other species say? Have you offered them the same choice? Every major civilization is receiving this offer simultaneously, but each species must decide for itself. We will not manipulate this decision as we did your social development. This choice must be made freely, with full knowledge of the consequences. High Counselor Velmar asked the question everyone was thinking. What happens if some species choose path 1 and others choose path 2? Then we work with those who wish to work with us, and we respect the autonomy of those who prefer independence. But we hope that won't be necessary. The approaching visitors are not evil, but they are incomprehensibly advanced. A divided galaxy would be vulnerable to cultural absorption in ways that a united galaxy would not be. You're asking us to trust you, General Korthax said. To trust the species that secretly manipulated our entire civilization for a year. We are asking you to trust the results of that manipulation, General. Look at your empire now, compared to a year ago. Are your people happier? Are they safer? Are they more prosperous? If our influence has been beneficial so far, why would you expect it to become harmful in the future? The chamber fell silent as the leaders considered their options. The choice was impossible. Trust a species that had manipulated them, or face an unknown galactic threat alone. How long do we have to decide? Emperor Thrackmore asked finally. Our guests will arrive in approximately 18 months. We suggest you take 6 months to consider, 6 months to observe the choices made by other species, and 6 months to prepare for whatever decision you make. And if we choose path 2, then you join the most ambitious project in galactic history. We become partners in building a civilization that spans star systems, shares knowledge freely, and faces the universe with wisdom instead of fear. Admiral Kexvon found himself speaking almost without realizing it. What would that look like? This partnership. Kovari ships traveling alongside human vessels to explore distant galaxies. Kovari citizens living and working in our mobile habitats. Kovari wisdom helping to solve problems that have puzzled us for years. And human knowledge helping the Kovari Empire reach its full potential as a force for stability and growth in the galaxy. It sounds, Dr. Yelent said softly, like what the Empire was always meant to become. That is why we chose you first, the human voice said. Of all the species we studied, the Kovari had the greatest potential for positive transformation. Your empire was built on strength, but it could be rebuilt on wisdom. Your military was designed for conquest, but it could be redesigned for protection. Your people feared change, but they could learn to embrace it. And now, Emperor Thrackmore said, you're asking us to embrace the biggest change in galactic history. We're offering you the chance to help shape that change instead of simply enduring it. The human voice paused, and when it continued, there was something almost vulnerable in its tone. We know this is difficult. We know you feel manipulated, deceived, perhaps even violated. But we also know that in 18 months, representatives from a galaxy far more advanced than ours will arrive in our space. When that happens, every decision we make, every alliance we form, every capability we develop could mean the difference between cultural survival and cultural absorption. We chose to spend a year making you stronger, wiser, and more unified because we believe that together we can meet our visitors as equals. Apart, we might survive as curiosities or pets. The choice, as always, is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in profound silence. Emperor Thrackmore looked around the table at his advisors, seeing his own mixture of fear, hope, and determination reflected in their faces. Well, he said finally, it appears that the humans have given us the greatest gift possible. What gift is that, Your Majesty? Admiral Kexvon asked. A choice that actually matters, the Emperor replied. For the first time in our history, we have the opportunity to choose not just our own destiny, but the destiny of our entire galaxy. He stood, his ancient frame somehow radiating new energy. We have 6 months to decide the future of everything we've ever known. I suggest we use that time wisely. As the leaders filed out of the chamber, each lost in their own thoughts about the impossible decision ahead, none of them noticed the small smile that crossed Dr. Yelent's face. She had already made her choice, and she suspected that when the time came, so would the rest of the galaxy. Humanity had spent a year proving that they could be trusted with power. Now they were offering to share that power with everyone. It was, she thought, exactly what she would have expected from a species crazy enough to disappear for a year just to make their enemies into friends.